And the reason I know Matt is from being at the YMCA. That's where I know Matt from. We see each other a couple times a week. He is a huge advocate for career and technical education, an independent educational consultant who calls upon his leadership skills to contribute to the local, state, national, and global conversations about vocational education. As you can imagine, as chair of the Economic and Workforce Development Committee, I've been very interested in Matt's work, and we've talked about it a lot over the past months. He has got his BA in History from the University of Baltimore and his MS Ed and EDD from the University of New England. He's a current fellow at the Center for Childhood and Youth Studies, affiliated with Salem State University, and is board vice chair for our very own Midcoast School of Technology. So I'd like Matt to come on up.
Thank you, Joan. I really appreciate that. Can you guys hear me okay? I think that introduction probably took 2 slides away, so maybe I could like shave off a minute and a half or so. No, that's all right. Let me just figure this out here. So, if there is someone who's more technically inclined than I am, my slides are not even on that screen. Although, Bruce is there, and Barry, Donald, and Heidi. Thank you. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which are today arm you against the present. I began with Marcus Aurelius because to me, his reflections cut to the chase of the human condition, allowing for surgical-like revelations that invite us to be the best versions of ourselves. Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Matthew Speno. I recognize that we are on indigenous land. In addition to the Abenaki and the broader place we now call Maine, is home to the sovereign people of the Wabanaki Confederacy, the Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, and Micmac peoples. We exist on their unceded lands. Thank you for inviting me to speak about a passion of mine, career and technical education, and I am grateful for the support that your organization does for Maine CTE. Doesn't want to move. There we go. As a gig worker, I have the flexibility to collaborate with lots of folks and organizations to provide some equitable opportunities for educational growth, to promote and protect human rights, and to provide opportunities for our neighbors to gather the skills to become a productive citizen. Most everything I do considers CTE on one level or another. I'm an open book when it comes to CTE. My belief in its benefits and its outcomes prompted me to go all in several years ago. At the University of New England, I was conferred my doctoral degree for my dissertation entitled The Lived Experience of Rural CTE Teachers as Members of the Secondary Education Teaching Corps. Long story short, some 150 pages later, my research provides a connection to the effectiveness of Evoke teachers' credentials, their talent, and professional development in the educational outcomes of our youth at the secondary level. I do a lot of my stuff at the Steelhouse in Rockland. It's located just across from Home Kitchen Cafe and to the right of the Apprentice Shop if you're looking at the ocean. I write, I research, I curate the gallery, and I also provide the space for the doers and the thinkers in our community. For example, we collaborated with Northeastern's Rue Institute to host a START Summit. Think Shark Tank for innovative entrepreneurship that finds solutions for sustainability in Rockland's working waterfront and our other local communities. I remember writing on one of my whiteboards something like, how do I get a postdoc? Several months after putting it out there, I was offered a postdoctoral fellowship with the Center of Childhood and Youth Studies out of Salem State University. I've just begun my second year as a CCYS fellow a couple weeks ago. I'm so grateful and fortunate to have this awesome opportunity to work with academics across the globe as we navigate by asking powerful questions about human rights, youth transitions, and equitable education access. As a fellow, I've published an academic chapter, I'm working on a further, and I'm collaborating on a project to understand how justice is approached within various academic disciplines. Career and technical education. When I look at the words, when I say them out loud, I let them echo to my core. And when I do so, I feel great hope. I know, again, in my core, the importance of CTE, the importance of vocational education and training, and the importance of the trades. Further, without an approach, without a plan of action to offer pathways for accessing the vocational trades, we, the collective global we, will be at a disadvantage to provide for the maintenance and innovation necessary to trigger human industrial revolutions, or for that matter, unclog a sink, keep the lights on, or ride in a safe car. You get it. Without the trades, we're kind of in a bad spot. CTE is the mark for vocational education in the United States of America. Personally, I don't mind the name, but I do equate CTE with the trades and vocational education because these are part of my language set and how I understand things. The name CTE, to me, seems to be an attempt to make the trades shiny, clean, and a glamorous graduation pathway. Hand on heart, I believe the acronym CTE is a step in the right direction. But in reality, like most learning, vocational education is rigorous, it's dirty, it's uncomfortable, and unfamiliar at times. The definition of CTE encompasses a simple concept of teaching skills needed for success. CTE is a program of study which provides a learner with the academic and technical skills to succeed in the workplace. This definition is not only simple and to the point, but it provides for overarching skills necessary for the success in the workplace. And what we're talking about here are academic and technical skills. What gets lost in the mix when related to the division of academic schools from vocational schools is that attendance at a CTE school includes a comparable level of curriculum rigor and is being planned and delivered by certified teachers. It is my contention that the relationship between CTE and the academic pathways was strained from the get-go. For example, when the Smith-Hughes Act of 1917 was passed, CTE was seen as a vehicle of educational reform. And although the act provided for a federal endorsement and protective funding for CTE, the separation of academic and vocational curricula and the subsequent development of state boards of vocational training separate from other educational boards set that stage for CTE to become stigmatized as a pathway that was considered inferior to academic programs of study. Over the years, earning an academic high school diploma has become the educational proxy that a four-year degree constitutes workforce readiness across career sectors. And unfortunately, the stigma against CTE continues. I get so annoyed when I hear CTE is for the freaks, for the dreamers, for the students who are stupid, for those who can't hack the regular academic program. Still, many parents hold that CTE is a waste of time and that its attendance by their children will put them at a disadvantage when they apply or attend college. And of course, one last annoyance, which is fast becoming obsolete, is for academic schools to discount the value of earning graduation credit from a CTE program. And this is because, with the quotes, their academic program is held in higher regard. The student needs to get our diploma, not theirs, is the mantra I've heard too many times. Though CTE began its position in secondary education as a separate pathway for learning, various legislative reform enactments have attempted to provide more equity for CTE and to also diminish the resulting stigma CTE holds due to this policy separation. As vocational education in America evolved to provide solutions for economic and social problems in the country, the Carl D. Perkins Vocational Education Act of 1984 was enacted to amend the original Vocational Act of 1963 and to also repeal its amendments. It is important to notice that with each legislative turn, the needs of the economy and curriculum development in schools became further aligned. Furthermore, legislative activities began to spread their influence across the diversity of schools in the United States. While Perkins 1 provided a structure to ensure access for learners with special needs, along with program funding refinement, it was Perkins 2 and 3 that the balance and integration of academics and vocational education began to build its foundational pillar of CTE reform in the United States. Perkins 4 became law in 2006 and was reauthorized in 2012 or 13. The net effect was an investment of $1.3 billion shared out to state boards of education and replacing the name vocational education with what we know today, career and technical education, or CTE. This name change was intended to reflect the move to elevate CTE to encompass the skills needed to provide the human capital for a changing workforce. And with the adoption of a comprehensive definition of CTE by Perkins 4, the treatment of CTE as a viable pathway towards earning industry-recognized credentials or a high school diploma was embedded in educational reform platforms across the country. The most current Perkins iteration was signed into law in 2018 under the name the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act. In concert with previous Perkins legislation, this law is referred to as Perkins 5, and it continues to improve the equity of CTE in America through new language and definitions, funding mechanisms, and expanded access to programming. I think you're going to agree that we're in short supply of a workforce that is trained in the trades. If I would have known better, I would have chosen a vocational path, because if you do the maths, becoming a plumber, an electrician, graphic designer, or whatever, can provide a livable wage or above. I have friends making $100K and then some, and again, without that hideous student loan debt. CT is important not only to the developing our workforce, it is a pathway for learners who do not fare well in the classroom. You know, that row by row, sterile learning environment that, thanks to previous industrial revolutions, in the advent of that scientific view of the industrial assembly line, I see this approach as treating a learner's head as a commode where we just shovel in, you know, you get it, it stinks at so many levels. The CTE student who is enrolled in high-quality secondary and post-secondary programs has the opportunity to earn an industry-recognized credential, or IRC. The IRC is a verification that an individual has met the standards for a CTE qualification or competence related to a specific level of workforce skills that employers seek. Along with being CTE specific, IRCs provide a level of academic learning that could be transferable to an academic credential, a high school diploma. I recall a student who was enrolled in the small engines and compact diesel technology program at MCST. And because the teacher understands industry needs, a certification from the Equipment and Engine Training Council is offered to the students. With this certification, these students are not only earning an IRC, but they're also being recruited by local businesses before they're even graduated. At Region 8, students must apply to the program of their choice and attend a rigorous interview to secure a place. Due to limited spots at the school, not all students interviewed will get a spot in their first pathway choice. But what they do get is an opportunity to enroll in another program, and more importantly, the student is being exposed to everyday expectations that the workforce demands. I think it's so awesome that MCSD students have the opportunities to gain these soft skills like communication, self-motivation, and work ethic, to name a few. When it's all said and done, when a student graduates high school after completing a study that included a CTE component, their self-esteem flourishes. And it provides that solid foundation to transition into career or college. CTE it's thriving in the United States, and Maine is no exception. From educators, politicians, parents, excuse me, to the CTE student, stigma against CTE is being replaced with esteem, with viability, and with respect. Like other states, the Maine Department of Education supports the Office of Career and Technical Education, which it provides information on how the DOE supports CTE in Maine. Maine also has an administrative body that supports CTE. It's called MACD. Stands for the Maine Administrators for Career and Technical Education. And they support the integration of CTE in the Maine educational system to cultivate the acquisition of high-quality CTE skills, while aligning CTE curriculum to the rigorous academic standards found in the Maine learning results. Maine has 27 CTE centers and regions. It sounds good, right? But I gotta be honest, when I first entered this game, I had no idea what this meant. It really was just gobbledygook. A Maine CTE center provides CTE to middle and high school students and is administered by a single administrative unit to serve its affiliated districts. On the other hand, a Maine CTE regional center provides CTE to middle and high school students that is administered by a quasi-municipal cooperative board comprised of representatives of each district in the catchment area. That's what MCST has. Students involved with Maine CTE gain real-life career skills. They can earn college credit through articulation agreements with the Maine Community College system and learn academic concepts that are relevant to the specific career they're interested in. In the end, it's just this simple. A CTE graduate has a matured sense of self-worth and the belief that through hard work, critical thinking, and a bit of grace, their future plans have a solid foundation before they even graduate high school. In preparation for this talk, Joan had sent several questions that I might consider, and one that stood out the most was, what are my favorite models of CTE? I found this question very difficult to answer because I believe CTE in any form is the way to go. Sure, could one model be better than the other? Of course, yes. But so many factors are at play. Think laws, think funding sources, politics, and of course, think needs. In Maine, we have CTE delivered through centers or regional centers, which do an okay job in terms of legislative and administrative concerns. Some other approaches include the comprehensive model, which has academic and vocational programs in the same building. There's career academies, which are basically a school within a school, or pre-apprenticeship, youth apprenticeship model, which I find very interesting. Again, I'm not worried about how a student gets CTE. I'm adamant that it has to be offered at a good standard. Here in Maine, our system of 27 centers and regions works. Our CTE students have many opportunities to gain high school graduation credit, earn for free credits that will be applicable to post-secondary studies, and also to learn about viable pathways for career and college that are not based upon the penchant that our culture has for attending a four-year college. Now, 2 bills have been signed into law this past summer by Governor Mills. LD 4436, entitled An Act to Provide CTE Students with Credit Towards High School Graduation for Work Completed in Career and Technical Education Centers and Regions. And LD 1283. Resolve to reestablish the task force to study the creation of a comprehensive CTE system. The former was signed into law in the normal pace, but the latter was signed as an emergency. I have so much to say about these two laws, and I would love to discuss this at the time, but, like others, I believe that my silence will be louder. I have great hope that all stakeholders will collaborate on this legislation that puts a CTE learner first. I thank you for your time, and I'll take your questions. Oh, no. You're going to give it to him first?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, Matt. No, seriously. Too many decades ago, when I attended middle school, we had wood shop, workshop. The girls had homemaking and a bunch of other trade type things, plastics, you name it. And that was in middle school. And then when you got into high school, they had more workshops. They had auto body. They had a lot of the things that you might see at Midcoast School of Technology was incorporated into the regular curriculum of public school. What happened?
Do you want the short answer, or you want the answer I'd really give you
Well,
on the
pretend
street?
we're in the spa together.
The adults in the room have lost the plot. Let that sink in. We did away with industrial arts. We did away with home ec because we wanted to become better English scorers and math scorers and stuff like that. So we essentially took away a pathway of learning that was experiential in nature, had a component of developing non-cognitive skills, which are applicable into the classroom, which deal with cognitive skills. The adults in the room have lost the plot. And we're paying for that right now because our system is broken. Maine does an awesome job. And again, my silence on those two bills is pretty loud. Does that answer your question? Ish?
Bob keeps raising his hand. We're keeping the mic from you, Bob. My question is, of the school districts around the state of Maine, what kind of cooperation do you folks that are working in the CTE area get? Are they quite cooperative, or do you get pushback on this? Thank you.
I've got to choose my words on this one. Do you want the answer as the vice chair of MCST? Or you want the answer as Dr. Matthew Speno? No, honestly, our district partners do a fantastic job. They understand exactly the needs that their children have. Our children right now are in a bad place. They are screaming for healing. Their mental health and anxiety are off the charts. A lot of these kids now cannot make it within that classroom, that industrialized classroom, row by row, yada, yada. So our colleagues do understand that the pathway of career and technical education is viable because it unlocks that potential of that human being. Has it always been this way? No, it has not. Because schools in this state, every school has their own graduation standards. And every single high school thinks that their diploma is better than the other. CTE in this state does not have a comprehensive high school diploma. And shame on us for not having that. We will get there, but we have to get there on an equitable platform. So yes, I love the colleagues I work with in different schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a very informative presentation. I wonder, though, if you had a very large sum of money and any of the staff that you would need to implement it, what kind of thing would you implement to solve some of these situations? In particular, the kind of the stigma, because I think that's a major thing that's probably somewhat solved, but not totally.
Part of the problem with how we view education in this country is that we don't really create any wealth. I have friends who work in New York and they work in London and Hong Kong. They create wealth and they create great wealth, so they're esteemed. And I'm nothing against what they do. But when you have a child learning how to navigate their life while learning how to fix an engine, forget about the wealth. We're creating a human being who's actually stepping into the inalienable right for a just life. So if I had all the money in the world, first I would give $81 million to the town of Union, Waldoboro, Warren, Friendship, to redo their whole district. That's the first thing I would do. Second thing I would do is I would take $130 million and I would build a world-class facility that would be a comprehensive high school that would actually also have outreach for the services that are needed in a high school, like special ed, speech and language. Because if we did create a comprehensive school in this state, which is needed, all the 27 different regions and centers would be put out to pasture, so to speak. Because where are those kiddos going to get the special needs? Where are those kiddos going to get the services they have when we can't even afford to give those to them now? So yeah, I would build a comprehensive high school that has satellite offices in every single CTE center and region.
You briefly mentioned that you were all in on CTE, and I'd like to know a little bit more about what inspired that, what influences you had that made you go, we got to do a better job of this.
Why I got there? As a young kid, I have learning differences. I have attentional dyslexia and other things going on, and I actually love the way that I work. But growing up, the adults around me didn't like the way I worked because I didn't work to their satisfaction. I lost my tools, or well, not my tools, my father's tools. He still hasn't found that really nice Phillips head screwdriver I bought him 50 years ago. Could be in Baltimore or San Francisco. We haven't decided yet. I played sport in high school. I played pretty high-level football and lacrosse, and that's what I was pushed into. You're going to go to college and play lacrosse. You've been recruited. No, I want to travel the world, or maybe in sophomore school. I want to go to Eastern Votech. My friend Michael Darty's going there. A kid I used to hang out with in elementary school. My parents didn't know. I used to ride motorcycles and fix them. I wanted to learn to wrench because I liked cars, still do, but I don't know how to wrench. You're going to go to college. You're going to play lacrosse. That's what you're going to do. I went to many different colleges. I failed out of 3 in my undergrad. I finally learned that I had learning differences. Went on to another school and another school and another school. I have too much education. But I firmly believe if my parents allowed me to go to Eastern Votech, all the bullshit I went through, right? I'm 56. This would have been happening when I was 22. So I wasn't allowed to because it was dirty, it was for the freaks, and not for Matthew Speno. No way. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Again, Matthew, thank you for a great presentation.
Pleasure.
I'm curious if in the United States, this disparity between the trades and the academics is not much more broad than in Europe. And I get there, I have an old friend who went to university in London, grew up there. And she had numerous friends who went apprenticing or to guild or trade shops, and they didn't look at each other much differently in the social side of their lives. They were at whatever strata they were at in society, but the university student and the guild student seemed to be on par. Any comment on that?
How much time you got? Yeah, we do CTE pretty good in this country. But when compared to Europe, yeah, we're kind of falling down. Because Germany, you can choose to do a vocational program at a young age. You go to school to here, you decide to go voc, you decide to go academic. There's no disrespect, no nothing. Is it South Korea, where they're going to look at different aspects of what is needed in terms of skills, and so they'll look at their vocational education and say how important that is, because having a trade, a workforce that's trained is going to get you economically there. So yeah, the transition in Europe, we can learn a lot. Right now, I'm working on a project with Eastern Europe, because every single country has a different governmental makeup, economic makeup, societal makeup. Maybe there's a war, maybe there's not. So we can learn a lot from how they actually approach this, to develop human beings to enter a workforce or enter society. And we can really provide that opportunity to put stigma behind us once and for all, because if you're a plumber or if you're a high financer in London, you're a human being who has the inalienable rights to a just life.
I'm curious about how your programs these days are formulated at the technology school, CTE school.
Yep.
Are there advisory groups around the various trades? How do the programs evolve as technology changes in the wider world, and how do the students, grow in our current culture?
That's a really good question, because that's important. And I wish I had Bobby Deach, and I know he's spoken in front, and I know Heidi's there, and hopefully I can do it justice. So let's look at what you asked. Basically, you're asking, how are these programs developed? How is the worth developed? How do we institute and implement and execute those plans in the state of Maine? Let's just take it for that. We don't do it pretty well. We don't do it well. You know that we need electricians, we need plumbers. And I'm speaking as Matthew Speno, who understands CTE, and not as the vice chair, because that would be irresponsible. We need those plumbers, we need electricians, we need HVAC people. But it takes so much time to develop a program through the governmental channels, because you have to make sure that you have certain standards in place. We learn these standards from our industry partners. They know what they need, they know what safety is, and they know what's needed to be taught. So yeah, we do consult on a level. Politicians are consulting on terms of funding or equity and so forth. It moves too slow. We need that now. We are bursting at the seams down the road. We cannot put in these programs because it takes anywhere from 12 to 24 months to develop that program. And again, if it takes that long, we're just going to be worse off down that road. But there are some initiatives. I've been working with several people who are local to address that problem on a level of public and private partnership. Yep. I just made some money.
Looks like there's a question online. No, I guess so. Oh, okay, all right. Any other questions? There you go.
Thank you.